All right, Sean Torre asked, when was hell created after Satan was kicked out of heaven? Another good question. I'm trying to think how to answer that quickly. Not always easy to answer these questions quickly, but I will again do my best for you guys. I'm going to try to share my screen one more time. I think it's always so beneficial. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Looks like it's going to work this time. Fantastic. All right. So let's start looking at some of the passages that speak about this place that we know or we commonly refer to as hell. Let's start in Mark chapter 9. All right. We're going to start with the sayings of Jesus. All right. I think it's always a good place to start with Jesus, because then we can work our way backwards until we get to kind of an understanding. Okay, so Jesus says in Mark 9:42, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter into life maimed rather than having two hands to go to hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where, notice here's a quote, their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And if your foot causes you to sin, and he says the same thing, and he quotes again from that same place, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. All right, and he says it again, and he quotes again, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Now, the word for hell, what is that word? Let's take a look at that in the Greek so that we can have a sense of what that word is. All right, so here's our English word hell. Here's our Greek word ge'enan. All right, ge'enan is coming from Gehenna, all right, which comes from the Ben Ge Hinnom, Ben Ben Gay, Gay Ben Hinnom, excuse me, Gay Ben Hinnom. The word gay in Hebrew is valley. Ben means son, and Hinnom is a name. And so this is a place that became known as Gehenna. And in that place, we see in Jeremiah 7:31, we see this, and they have built the high places of Tophet. Um, Sorry about that. Let me just go back there, and I'm just wanting to put that into Hebrew for you, so we can take a look at that. And they've built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom. All right, so here we have it. Begay Ben Hinnom. All right, so Gay Ben Hinnom. This is where this comes from. And this is also known as Tophet. Tophet, keep that in mind, kind of bookmark the word Tophet from just really quick. And what were they doing there? They're burning their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come into my heart. This is what they were doing there. They're doing these terrible, terrible things. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when it will no longer be called Tophet, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, Gay Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. For they will bury in Tophet until there is no room. Wow. All right. So there's a lot to unpack here. Let's now go to Isaiah chapter 30, 30, okay, verse 31. And we have this verse 33. All right. The context here is that God is giving a prediction, a declaration over what is going to happen to a certain king. I would argue, I don't have time to go into all the detail, but I would argue that this king is in fact the same king who is over Babylon. That same king is in fact Satan, all right, for lack of a better word. And so here comes the Lord burning with his anger, and his burden is heavy. His lips are full of indignation, his tongue like a devouring fire. All right, so this is a general description of what it looks like when Jesus comes back. His breath is like an overflowing stream, which reaches up to the neck to sift the nations with the sieve of futility, etc. And so then the Lord will come. He show the descent of his arm with the indignation of his anger and the flame of a devouring fire. This is an amazing description of when Jesus comes back. And it says here, he's going to beat down through the voice of the Lord, Assyria will be beaten down, and as he strikes with the rod. And then we finally come to verse 33. For Tophet was established of old. So we saw that Tophet and Gehenna are the same place, right? We saw that. That Gehenna and Tophet are the same place. That was in Jeremiah 7:31. So for Tophet was established of old. Now wait a second. Tophet was established of old. Now we're only in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is writing somewhere between 750 to roughly 710, somewhere in there. And Tophet was established of old. Now that's interesting. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? I would suggest that this is much more than just a couple hundred years. This is something much older. And he goes on to say, yes, for the king it is prepared. Well, what's prepared? Tophet, this place of slaughter, this place also known as Gehenna, was prepared for the king, and is prepared. He has made it deep and large. Its pyre is fire with much wood. The breath of the Lord, like a stream of brimstone, kindles it. So this place is very similar to, or I should say it's not similar to, but what is kindling this place? Where is this fire coming from? It's coming from the breath of the Lord, like a stream of brimstone is what is lighting it up. Well, where do we see this? We see this in Daniel chapter 7. It says, Daniel sees this incredible description of the Ancient of Days. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking, probably a reference to the Antichrist. I watched till the beast was slain and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. That's exactly what is going to happen in Revelation chapter 19. We see this. The beast was captured, and these two were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. That's the same place, all right? And what is this place that we're talking about? It's this place known as Gehenna. It's known as Tophet. It was prepared for Satan and his angels. I'm going to cruise over to Matthew chapter 25 really quick here. Actually, I forget it's, let's see here. So when the Son of Man returns, we're going to see when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and he's going to separate the sheep from the goats, right? We know what happens to the sheep. They get to come on in. Why, Lord? Because when I was hungry, you helped me, etc. And then he says to those on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire, prepared for who? The devil and his angels. So I would suggest that the king that was prepared for the king, that Tophet was prepared for the king, that we saw in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 33, is a reference to the devil, to Satan, whatever other name you want to think of him for him, but let's call him the devil or Satan. That place was prepared for him. Now, all right, bookmark this. Okay, there's a lot to this, so it's not one of those simple doctrines that we can just quickly look at and be done with it. But we have to take a look at all the different pieces to understand the context of what Jesus was saying in Mark chapter 9. So in Isaiah 66, verse 23, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, all flesh shall come to worship before me, says the Lord. Notice here, and they shall go forth and look upon the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me, for their worm does not die, and their fire is not quenched. They shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. Wow. All right, so here we have the word piglim or pigrei hanashim, and this word here, as we can take a look, all right, pegel is a corpse, a carcass, a monument, a stela, the corpse of a man. So a corpse, a carcass, this thing is dead, all right? So these bodies here are not living people, they're dead people. like dead with no life in them. All right, and these corpses of the men who've transgressed against me, and it's the worm that does not die, and the fire is not quenched. But we're not told that they are conscious. We're not told that they are in agony, that um, they're being burned continually, but just that their corpses are there. And it's, of course, it's not a very nice experience, but there's no conscious spirit within these people. So the question again concerning Satan, hell, when was this established? Was hell created after Satan was kicked out of heaven? Yes, I would suggest that was the case. That essentially what happened to Satan is that he was either a keruv, as one of the keruvim, the cherubim, or he was a seraph, or maybe both, as we kind of speculated here. But he had fire in him, and that fire was taken away. We already looked at, in this segment, we looked at Ezekiel chapter 1, and we saw that these keruvim, that they're fiery, right? They have this fire in and around them, and this fire was taken out. We see that in Ezekiel chapter 28. So in Ezekiel chapter 28, God says, "You are the anointed cherub who covers. You walked on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones." So there's some kind of fire that is associated with Satan. This is before he falls. You were perfect in all the ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. And then he says that by the abundance of your, I would say, slandering, the text says trading, but that's another discussion, you became filled with violence within and you sinned. Therefore I cast you as a profane thing out of the mountain of God. And I destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the fiery stones. The fiery stones seems to be a reference to the cherubim described in Ezekiel chapter 1. And he says, your heart was lifted up because of your beauty, your corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. I cast you to the ground and laid you before kings that they might gaze at you. And notice here in verse 18, you defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities. Therefore I brought fire from your midst. It devoured you. I turned you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all who saw you. So he took the fire that was part of Satan's makeup and he took it out. He took it out. So now Satan and fire don't seem to mix too well. But when he first created him, fire was part of his makeup. In other words, he could be in God's presence because we're told that God is a consuming fire. And to be in his presence is to be in his fire. How do we know this? Well, let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3. And Paul tells us, now if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, and straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire. So when we stand in God's presence, we're going to be standing in his fire, and the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is. So we will be there too, right? If anyone's work which he's built on it endures, he'll receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire. We're going to be in God's fire. That's really that simple. We are going to be in God's fire. We're told that the angels are ministering spirits of fire. We're told that God is a spirit of fire. And I take that very literally, that there really is fire coming out from God. And so to be in his presence in a fallen state means that you do not have your fire suit on. You do not have a body that is compatible with fire. And Satan is currently not compatible with fire. So God then created this place called Tophet, or Gehenna, and that is Satan's ultimate destination. And it will not bode well for him because he does not mix with fire like he used to. So God created that place after he fell, not before. He did that as a response to Satan's fall, not before. And we saw that in Isaiah chapter 30, that it was prepared for the king from the days of old. It was prepared for Satan.